All right. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy BQ. This is the Impact Lounge, the number one place to be for the Impact Wrestling fan. This is the Cool Factor podcast. It's going to be a solo show today. I wanted to review Impact, and TW is not available tonight. We're right now. The plan is for us to drop another podcast tomorrow night. Got to come up with some topics, things of that nature. We hadn't reviewed the show in a couple weeks for various reasons, usually because we've been recording a little bit late in the week. And Monday's kind of that night where I'm like, if we can record Monday, we can still get away with reviewing the show. If it's past Monday, not so much. So if you're jumping in the chat, I always preface this when I'm doing a solo show. I don't monitor the comments as I'm recording. Now, if I've got a certain question or topic that I need to poll the audience, then I'll go ahead and do that. But it's a little difficult for me to do both. So a solo stream, if you're conversing in the comments, it'll be with each other, not so much with me. So again, solo show today because I really wanted to actually review this episode, and then TW and I will try to link up again later in the week, hopefully tomorrow, and knock out another show. So you just might get a couple episodes this week. But the reason I wanted to review this show, not only because we hadn't reviewed in a little bit, but because I really enjoyed the episode. And the last few weeks have had some ups and downs for me. And I'm always talking about the wrestling being excellent, just the storytelling not necessarily there. And then the backstage segments all look exactly the same. I mean, they might as well be in Skyway Studio, like it just exactly the same. This week they did a couple different things, so I appreciated it. Still had the pink lights and all that, but that aside, they shot things a little bit differently this week. So I thought it was cool. We kicked this episode off with the Impact World Tag Team Championship up for grabs on the line. The Good Brothers versus Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. I met Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, I don't know, week or two ago at the NWA meet and greet. And these, I actually chatted with them for a little bit. Really cool guys. I like these guys. I've always liked Mike Bennett quite a bit. And, I told him a story that I first met him real early into his TNA days. It was probably his third set of tapings with the company. It was their first one in Orlando, and he did the meet and greet afterwards. And my boys at the time were really, really young, and him and Maria were very, very kind to them. So I just, he was probably the first wrestler I ever met, to be totally honest with you. I'm trying to think here, because at the time I was living in Florida, and not a lot comes through Florida. At least the part where I lived. It's not really like a hotbed for wrestling. I met Ryback once, but it was a very WWE meet and greet. You're kind of in and out. It wasn't really much. But Mike Bennett was the first one, him and Maria, that I consider them to be the first ones I really met. Very, very kind. So I've always wanted good things for him. I wanted good things for him in TNA. I didn't really want him to leave when he did. I didn't think he got the job done, And by that, I mean, he had the X Division Championship. I just thought there was more he could have done with his TNA career. And there was just more I wanted to see from him. I didn't want him to leave. I just didn't think he was done. You know what I mean? But yeah, him and Taven were really, really cool. And I told Mike Bennett that story. I said, I'll never let anyone say anything bad about you guys. Honor No More, not the hugest fan as a group, not because of them, but because of what Impact has done with them. But that being said, things are starting to turn a new corner here. So this match happened. I was fairly certain OGK was going to win the belts. It was a little hard for me to watch the match because I just don't care about the Good Brothers. I can't focus when they're in there. It just drives me insane. Now, of course, I got to talk about, because I've been saying this for the last couple of months, how long the show takes to start. With all the recaps, and I don't think the recaps are necessary. I think you can break them down into relevant parts in the show You know, you don't have to show us Mickie James this and this and Josh this and this and the Good Brothers and all that stuff. You know, like, but they show us all that. They play We Own the Night. Uh, OGK comes down. The Good Brothers come down, who have the slowest entrance to the ring in professional wrestling. It's like Undertaker status. And the bell doesn't ring until the 7-minute mark of the show. You are losing people in that 7 minutes. I promise you, Impact Wrestling. I promise you, Access TV. You are dropping people, or people are dropping off first 7 minutes of that show. But anyway, this was the first match. It was a little hard for me to tune in, like I said, because I just don't like the Good Brothers. It looks like they're done with Impact. They have, you know, they've teased over the years, over these 2 years or with the company, that they were invested in the company, tease that they might be here long term, that they're going to get AJ Styles to come over, you know, because the money's good here, blah, 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 blah. Most of us knew the minute that 2-year mark was up, and I think, yeah, they did technically like stay a couple extra months, that they were out of there. We knew it. And it was clear that the way their contract was structured, that they probably had to have 3 world championship runs, their tag team title runs. And even though they toned it down, you know, they're pimping their merchandise on this show. They were, you know, pimping their podcast. They had some programming on Access TV before the pay-per-views and everything, like doing movie night and all that. Like, they were like, it was just the Good Brothers just running this damn company. They rarely lose. They've lost some matches, but I think it was pretty clear that in contracts they were supposed to win the title 3 times, because that third one was so unnatural and so unnecessary. Even the second one was, to be honest, but that third one was just like, it just felt so out of place. It just seemed like Impact's like, oh, we're supposed to give them the belts again, so we're going to go ahead and do it. Did the company benefit from them being with them? Yes or no. It depends who you ask or how you look at it. I think they absolutely bridged the gap with New Japan. You know, they probably were instrumental in bringing, you know, making the Bullet Club part of the show. You know, so you look at things like that, and yeah, they were helpful. But if you're talking about moving the needle on the ratings, you know, just overall extra eyeballs on the company, even if it's social media, YouTube, like, I don't think it was that. Initially, I thought maybe so, but when they were showing up on AEW television and like the fans clearly didn't care about them, and there was no buzz behind them being there with the AEW audience, and even the pro AEW podcasters were like, "Oh my god, these guys are horrible." It was dawning. That's when it was like really dawned on me. I was like, "What a waste of money." I know from a fairly reliable source, and I know we probably shouldn't be talking numbers and all that. I know from a fairly reliable source, the Good Brothers were each making $200K a year from Impact. And when you are signing wrestlers on the lower card and mid card to, you know, $200 for a set of tapings, $400 for a set of tapings, so $200 a day, that's nothing. I would imagine most of those wrestlers are losing money going to the tapings. You know, especially if they have a shoot job and they're taking a day off. You know what I mean? I don't think wrestlers signing those deals are I mean, they're clearly not making money. You know, if anything, they're probably breaking even or losing money, but I don't see situations where they're making money. And they're losing guys and they're departing the company because the company wants them to re-sign. You know, hey, we signed you with this deal. We want you to re-sign for this deal. And those people aren't going to stick around for that, because the first deal is supposed to be, okay, let us prove ourselves. If we get to a certain point, we deserve to be paid more. The problem is how many of these wrestlers, that Jake Somethings and all these guys, were like, where's the push? Where's the push? Well, now I'm thinking, yo, is this company preventing the push from really happening because they know that when the wrestler's contract is up, they're going to have to pay him? I don't know. But paying almost $500,000 to the Good Brothers, you know, hand out contracts like that if you're like, hey, we want to compete with the big dogs. But when you're doing, you know, the way the show's edited, the way the camera work is, and the lighting and the pink lights and all that. Like that's a YouTube show, which is fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I watch YouTube wrestling, but that's a YouTube product. So why are you signing guys uh, that would signify you're trying to hang with the big dogs? You know, where I'm going with this is instead of paying $500,000 to the Good Brothers, why not guarantee 20 wrestlers $20,000 a year? You know, grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money, but as far as like a guaranteed amount where the wrestlers now it's up to them to, you know, do the meet and greets and do the bookings and all that to, to take care of themselves from there. But, there is some exposure you do get with Impact. It's not the same as AEW Dark or anything like that, but there's some exposure you get with Impact. So, I think people would be more willing to accept that exposure if they knew a little bit of money came with it too. Like you gotta, you gotta balance it out. But I think the company would just benefit from a more balanced overall roster than saying, hey, we're gonna pay these dudes at the top all this freaking money, and then the people at the bottom are gonna make jack shit. I just don't think that is I know that's a business model they find to be successful and that it works for them. Who am I but a podcaster? But I would just disagree. I really think having a balanced roster, throwing some kind of guaranteed money out there instead of, hey, come in and you're going to get all this exposure because we're in all these companies. You're going to lose money, but we're going to, and then they get there and they realize the exposure is not that great. Yes, the exposure is there, but again, if it came with some guaranteed money, I just think they would be a bigger player when it came to free agents. But it just seems like, hey, we're afraid to pay some of these homegrown guys or these lesser talents because we're trying to save money for the next Good Brothers. And what is that doing? Because when the Good Brothers first showed up, they had no one to fight. That was the problem. They didn't build up any of their current tag teams to be worth a damn. The Triple XLs, the Reno Scums. These guys, I think maybe even OVE was there at the time. I don't really remember. Might have been tail end. They had a couple tag teams going. The Deaners were a team. They just had all these underneath tag teams, and then here come the Good Brothers. There was no benefit because you weren't tuning in to see Good Brothers matches. They were banking on you just tuning in to see the Good Brothers, period. But they weren't having competitive matches with anybody. I mean, their debut with Reno Scum was pretty much a squash. Squashing their own talent to bring in these higher priced guys. So I'm saying all this because now the Good Brothers have dropped the title. Doesn't look like they're showing back up for a rematch or anything like that. And thank God. And this is what Honor No More needed to start moving forward, especially with Eddie getting this world title run. Because Honor No More, world title shot, I should say. Honor No More shows up, whatever it is, Slammiversary or Hard to Kill or Rebellion. I don't even know at this point, but they show up and are the hottest thing on the show for 2 or 3 episodes until they start losing matches. So, and since then, they haven't been that hot. They've been featured, but they're not hot. They lose more than they win. Now we got some champions going. The momentum is there again for Honor No More a little bit. So I'm very excited that these guys are the champions. Of course, the Good Brothers couldn't just do the job on the way out. They had to play this off that that OG cheated just because he knocked Carl Anderson off the ropes. Like, just these guys, I'm just glad they're gone. They hijacked the tag team division. They hijacked Impact Wrestling. I'm just glad they're gone. I have no interest in seeing them ever coming back to the company. There was the backstage segment with Honor No More and the pink lights and all that. And these segments are all exactly the same. They start off, Eddie's talking about how everyone's on the same page, everyone's this and this, their mission, except PCO. this storyline is so fabricated, and I guess it's pro wrestling, so everything's like fabricated. Everything's a script. But aside from the company booking PCO as a babyface in a bunch of matches, there's nothing he's done on screen or in the ring to question that one would question his loyalty to Honor No More. Like, this is something they're pushing, and they're making it up out of thin air. If it's a storyline they wanted, they should have done a better job of painting that picture that PCO was not on the same page as them. There was the one segment, I think Eddie wanted him to hit someone with a chair and he wouldn't do it. That was the only thing. And everything else, PCO looks, engaged with Honor No More. And OGK came back with the belts. He's clapping. He's just like the rest of them. So I feel like they're making something up out of thin air that it's really unnecessary at this point, because PCO did get hot as a baby face for a little bit. But that's when you need to pull the trigger. What the hell's he done since then? Who's he wrestled? What has he done on screen? The fans that were PCO, cheering him and all that, that's not going on anymore. He's just doing backstage segments. So you could just as easily keep him a heel and put him back in Honor No More, and you're good to go. I mean, he's with Honor No More, but you're good to go. It's just a storyline that at this point is really unnecessary. There's no reason to have their doubts about PCO. This is probably going to lead to something, but I don't think it's going to lead to something all that interesting or logical, to be honest. But it's whatever. Kenny King, Marie Kanellis in this said that she was going to accompany Kenny King to the ring later. I was unaware until a day or so before the show that Kenny King was wrestling for the X Division Championship. Maybe you guys knew. Maybe they announced it last week. I didn't catch it last week. And I know it sounds shitty for me as a podcaster, but I don't follow their socials anymore. But I have enough fans who keep me in the loop, or I see the retweets. So like, I still know what's going to be on the show, but either I just completely missed this, or I don't know. But I just felt like this X Division title shot came out of nowhere. With that being said, Mike Bailey did defend his title against Kenny King. Maria Kanellis was with him. And those are those little things that I think breaks up like the monotony of a stable, when Maria Kanellis, who's obviously Mike Bennett's wife, comes out with Kenny King. There's no Mike Bennett out there. Like, it's just the two of them. So when you see stables in different configurations within it that are outside of the norm, I think it really helps them not come off so bland. I use the the AEW example because they have so many stables, and even though they might have tag teams within the stables, the best example I gave was when Inner Circle, when Ortiz and Santana were in there. I mean, they had a night where Ortiz teamed up with like Sammy Guevara. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just completely break it up, instead of Ortiz always has to team up with Santana. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I would love to see a night where it's like Kenny King and Mike Bennett versus someone. I think that does help with stables coming off like really, really bland and predictable. So I liked the dynamic of Kenny King, Maria Kanellis. The match itself was excellent. This wasn't like the first match where I'm like, I don't want to watch this. This match was killer. I enjoyed it from top to bottom. And I thought Kenny King should have won. But I like the way they made him feel like he won at the end. Because the reason I think Kenny should have won is because I think Honor No More should have all the belts. I think this would create so much momentum heading into Bound for Glory that you really feel like you don't know if Josh can beat Eddie, because Honor No More is just doing it all. If he had the X Division Championship, OJK has a tag team championship, all of a sudden they're just dominant, So having Kenny lose, I think hurt that potential momentum. But the way he lost, where he thought he won, Bailey ends up, they restart the match, and they did a good job with the way they restarted it. Like the ref was clearly looking. He was up and he saw it, the first ref. But the way they did it, I think, did protect the integrity of what they're trying to do with Honor No More and their push and momentum going forward into Bound for Glory. You can say that, Kenny King didn't lose clean. I mean, I guess he lost clean, but you know what I mean? Like, he didn't just take the L, just flat. At least he looked like he won the match. So I'll give them props to that. I still would have rather Kenny have the belt, because I do think Josh and Speedball Mike Bailey as champions, they're just wrestlers. There's no gimmick. There's nothing to them. They just wrestle. I don't like having the two main guys be like that. You know what I mean? Like, Kenny King has so much more charisma, attitude, presence about him. Hasn't won a whole hell of a lot in Impact, but I don't know. Like, I would have preferred him just be the champion. Again, I'm just a podcaster, but I would have rather had Honor No More have all these titles, and then you just keep Josh off television. You're just doing video packages for Josh every week that he's not even necessarily talking in. He might talk a little bit, but they're like training videos. They're, you have Honor No More really running the show, being the biggest part of the show. And then Josh he's just at home. And they're calling out Josh like, "Where you at?" But they're just showing training videos. He's just like a very like Rocky Balboa style type of thing. And I think something like that would have really, really worked, rather than let's get Eddie and Josh talking and sitting down with Gia and all this that they do for everybody. To me, it just comes off a little bit bland. So I just would have liked them think outside the box like that. And I said a very similar thing when Trey Miguel was defending his title against Mike Bailey and Ace Austin, where the whole storyline was Mike Bailey and Ace Austin. Granted, I think Trey might have been injured or sick, or he had something going on with his family. I don't remember exactly. But they could have done some kind of like video packages from where he was at his, at his facility there where he has his school, where he's like training. You know what I'm saying? Like something like I just think there's a benefit of keeping the champion off TV, but keeping him on TV, but keep him out of the arena. You know what I mean? But it's all good. It's whatever. Mike Bailey's still the champion. Would have just rather Kenny King won this, but I was really entertained with the match. This was one of the cooler X Division matches I feel like we've seen in a little while. There was a segment with Brian Myers backstage with him and Bhupinder Gujjar. I don't really care about this. I love Brian Myers. And I talked with Matt Cardona. I don't remember if I talked about this with TW last time on a podcast. But I met with Matt Cardona, or I met him, and I'm pretty sure TW and I did talk about this. But I met him, and he definitely feels that, he wasn't taking shots or throwing shade at Impact by any stretch of the imagination. He definitely feels they dropped the ball with him as a digital media champion, though. I could tell that, from our brief convo, that there was a lot he felt he could have done with it. And Brian Myers works, I like him as the champion. I don't really have a lot of interest in this feud. They're just it just keeps going. What's this going to lead to? A pre-show match of Bound for Glory where Bhupinder wins? I mean, don't really care. Jessica was celebrating her match from a week ago, so they didn't celebrate after the match or that night or the next day. They decided a week ago to celebrate. And this was a little makeshift bar, which I thought they did a pretty good job. Sorry, my cat. I thought they did a good job of putting that little bar together. Like, it looked cool. They were the only ones there, obviously. You probably could have not used the pink lights there, and maybe it would have looked like you were not on site, What the hell do I know, though, right? Podcaster. Just a podcaster. But I've been saying this as well. I like the Jessica stuff because it's different. I like the dynamic with her and Taya. Rosemary just is turned into a comedy character. That's just what I'm not enjoying about all this. I mean, she just is. There's no way around it. Like, it's so hard to imagine her like getting another Knockouts title run. I thought they were going to, when her and Taya were heels, that's what it was working. And I thought they got back on track with Rosemary. But yeah, she just stands out like a sore thumb in these so bad. I mean, they're just it's just comedy. She stays true to her gimmick. You know what I mean? I'm not saying she's like out of character or anything like that, but I just don't think comedy is the way to go with Rosemary. But she's always over with the people, no matter what. Gia Miller did a interview with Aussie Open. I actually really like this. I know it was a very small part of the show, but they had a certain presence about them that no one else has on the roster. They spoke with a certain confidence that just no one else has. It just really, really stood out. It didn't feel like a normal Gia Miller interview. They're going to be taking on Bullet Club next week. I don't know why they couldn't have Jimmy Jehoshaphat and, Paulie Price, Timmy Toenails. I just don't understand why you couldn't just do that when these guys come in. Why do you have the tag team that is consists of a couple guys that really need to get hot and we want to see them do well and the fans like them, and why have the Bullet Club be their first opponent? We know Chris Bay's going to take the damn pin. Like, why couldn't Peter Pajama Pants and I mean whoever from the street just be the opponents for them? I don't get it. But I'm looking forward to seeing them. I've seen some of their stuff when they work with AEW, so they're pretty cool. I would be willing to bet they'll be wrestling for the tag team championships at Bound for Glory. I doubt it's going to be a 2-on-2 match with Honor No More. I would imagine it'll be 3 teams with Bullet Club, maybe a 4th team with the Motor City Machine Guns. But I will bet my third testicle that it's going to be a multi-team tag team match at Bound for Glory for the belts. And then after this, they've been doing this lately. Gia's talking to someone backstage, and all of a sudden she hears people yelling, and then it's like, "Come here, come here." So it's Steve Macklin and Moose arguing. They're doing barbed wire massacre. I love both of these wrestlers, and I'm disappointed when I don't get to see them wrestle. There's some guys who I think could stand from not wrestling so much, doing more character work. These are 2 guys I would just love to see wrestle, but they're not. And then we had the obviously they had to write Joe Doring off TV. I thought this was okay. I thought it was just, I mean, what are you going to do? I don't know that this was done while they were taping. I don't know if they had to do it off site somewhere else. The pink lights would make me think it was during the taping. I don't know, but I don't know that there's a better way to do it, but I was a little confused with how they did it. You got to get Joe Doring off screen so he can focus on his health, family, and all that. So I think that's awesome. I was worried they were gonna have someone beat him down. You know what I mean? You know how Impact does it. Someone will deliver a stiff uppercut, and now the person's off screen for weeks. I'm glad they didn't do anything like that. But it was just weird. They were just like, you got to find your own way. And it's just like, goodbye. And then Eric Young's going to step away, it seems like. And Diener said, "Are you leaving me?" And Eric Young said, I'm leaving. You can come with me, or whatever what he said. So it makes me wonder, does Eric Young need time off as well? Are they going to find a way uh, to tighten up Diener's character or develop him a little bit? Maybe give him some solo match. He had that one good solo match with Mike Bailey, which was pretty good. Shows that, hey, this dude can wrestle. But maybe they'll find a way to develop him. I don't know. I do think they have to reimagine, how they're going to handle Honor No More, Violent by Design. I think they have to figure out how to, just really reimagine how to handle them going forward, because it just seems like, even though they have multiple title runs and Eric Young was champion at one point, it just seems like these promos are just the same thing every week, and I I just don't see them very. They're elevated, but there's just no difference in them and their gimmick. There's no growth as a stable from when they first started. You know what I mean? So I think I don't want to see them disband them, but they just got to figure out, like, what's next for this group. What can we do to make them a little bit different, a little fresher? You know, I I truly think the way you freshen up a stable, I was saying about this for OVE forever, is to add a female to it, add a chick to it. Uh, could really freshen things up. I'm not a big three person stable fan. I always like four. I think four is a good number, but I think they could use a fourth member that's not Rhino or something like that, because that didn't really work with me. All right, so Mickie James returns, has a special announcement. This to me was the best part of the show. The show was missing something like this forever, and this isn't something you can manufacture. But they were missing something raw, something real, something that had real emotion to it. I feel like it was just absent from the show. And it goes back to when D'Lo and Matt Stryker was on commentary, where I was always like, they sound like they're reading off a script. Like, nothing they're saying is natural. Excuse me. Nothing they're saying was natural. A lot of the promos to me were starting to not sound so natural. So something like this was, welcomed, in my opinion, on the show. They just needed this. So Mickie James has, she looked phenomenal, of course, always does. And she's talking about her career. And to go back to what I was saying earlier about these contracts where you're bringing people in for, $200, you're not going to have this next Mickie James if you don't break bread. They've been fortunate to have the Gail Kims and the Mickie James and some of these people. Excuse me. Woo. Some of these people come back in one way, shape, or form, whether they're a competitor or not. Someone that has ties to some good times with TNA. But you're not going to have those people anymore one day. Like that current crop is going to be gone. And you're not going to have the replacements if you don't commit to a roster and commit to some of the people you're developing. If you would have offered a really competitive contract to Kiera Hogan and she would have got that Knockouts title run, the one that Tasha Steelz got, maybe that would have been the beginning of something huge. Maybe she would have been in this company forever, But she, long story short, had said that she wants to be on top of the mountain again. She wants to be the Knockouts champion. But she doesn't just want to wrestle the Knockouts champion. She wants to work her way up to the title. And clearly she's not in the Bound for Glory match, because normally what Impact would do would be, Mickie James has to earn her way to the title, meaning that next week she wrestles Alicia Edwards, and then the week after that she's in a number one contenders match. You know what I mean? And boom, like, she's done it. She climbed the mountain. They've done stuff like that in the past, very short-sighted. And it seems like this is going to be a much, much more long-term thing. And I think it's going to be a fun ride. I think we're going to see her wrestle everyone on the roster. We don't want her to just run through the roster and everyone take L's to Mickie James. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta find a way that enhances the integrity of your roster without making them look bad. I think that over the next couple of weeks before I guess Bound for Glory is coming up pretty soon. I think Mia Yim's a good competitor for her Bound for Glory. At the same time, I think she should be wrestling a couple of the lesser talents before that first, So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but she basically said she wants a shot at the Knockouts Championship. She's going to work her way up to it. But if she loses or she loses the Knockouts Championship match, then she's going to retire. So this is kind of similar to the Ric Flair thing years and years ago with WWE. I don't know that she's necessarily saying the next time I lose, I'm done. I would think that is part of it. Like if she wins a Knockouts Championship, I don't think that she's just going to wrestle again for 5 more years. Like I think that it's going to we're probably seeing the end for sure either way. But I think it's going to make for good television, and I think it could do some wonders for the viewership because people are going to want to watch Mickey's last matches. It didn't do much for them when Kurt Angle was wrestling his last matches, but I think also at the time it was also because people are like, well, once he retires there, he can go back to WWE and wrestle. I think that's what people were expecting. Like with Mickie James, she's clearly about done. And I think before she gets that Knockouts title match, if they do the story correctly, she'll have to beat Chelsea Green because that's who she's lost to a couple times. I think that is the end game, the long-term end game, not the end game, but like you beat Chelsea Green, then you move on to the next opponent, which could be Masha, could be Jordan Grace. I don't really know. But the emotion she had was we just need more of that, The couple emotional segments they have had over the last couple years typically had like We Own the Night behind them or something and completely ruined them, So this was just awesome. We love Mickie. So this is good stuff. Gene Miller sat down with Josh Alexander, head of his Impact World title defense against Eddie Edwards at Bound for Glory. At first, she was asking him about, or I don't know if she asked him, but he started talking about the Mickie James thing at first. And that, again, was also kind of real. And I enjoyed Josh in this. And then he got back to, but Eddie Edwards at Bound for Glory, and now we're just going to do this cookie cutter promo that I might as well just be reading off a piece of paper. And it just started good. Got dry. Then it got interesting because Eddie came and sat down and, they're trying to do a story with, he should join Honor No More or basically turn on the world of Impact Wrestling. Like, it's interesting. I think they could come up with a better story, but, this works. The story we talked about last week that they just seem to almost forget was, that he's mad that he didn't get his crack at Kenny Omega. Like that was a great genesis to this, but it almost seems like they've forgot about it and they're trying to get into this weird like join Honor No More storyline. Like you can do a lot better than that. And then Heath comes and man, I am going to assume that Heath is playing a bigger part of this storyline than we think he is. Because right now he's just coming off like this annoying dude that's coming and inserting himself in a business that he shouldn't insert himself in. It seems like, hey, we need something for Heath to do. Let's make him go after Honor No More every week. But then there was like a little dissension between him and Josh when he tried to talk to Josh after. So I have to believe that he's playing a role in this. Heath could join Honor No More. I don't know. There's a good chance at the end of Bound for Glory, we're like, wow, this all came together masterfully. There's a good chance of that. Just like, wow, what a great story. But right now, I'm not its biggest fan. But I'm open-minded enough that I think they could do something with it We'll just see what it is. Um, I'm curious if Heath is going to wrestle Josh at some point in this whole thing. Should be interesting. Alex Zane took on Mascara Dorado. I thought at first when it said or Mascara Dorada, at first I thought it was the midget from Lucha Underground. Um, God, what the hell was his name? Damn, I know his name. It's just escaping me at this point. I thought that's who he was wrestling at first. So this was a match. I guess it was a number one contendership for the X Division title. It was a good match. It was a fun match. Wasn't super engaged in it because why do I have to care about either of these guys? Alex Zane is extremely talented because he hasn't won any matches on Impact, and then Dorada, I know he did his WWE thing, but I mean he's most likely not signed with the company, so I that kind of stuff. I'm like, why should I care about this? It's just a wrestling match, but apparently it was for a number one contendership for the X Division Championship. I don't know that they announced that when they came to the ring. I'm curious if they did or not. I might go back and check. But I didn't know it was a number one contendership match until the end after it was over, and Tom said something. But it was a good match. It was fun. It really fit in the same mold as that match with Kenny King and Speedball Mike Bailey earlier. There were just two really good fun matches. It was just a little hard to care about this one. He wins with the Dorada driver. I don't know why people have to have more creative names for finishers than just throwing driver on everything. But good match. Jordan Grace sat down with Mickie James backstage. I thought this was really good too. It just went back to just raw, something real, like real conversation. It just goes back. It played off very well over the Mickie James segment from earlier. So I definitely enjoy that. And it looks so different because it was, they look like they're sitting in the lobby of somewhere. My dad owns, or he doesn't. My dad has owned nursing homes before, but he currently is just running the VA nursing home in Nevada, and that looked like his his lobby. Um, but it didn't have the pink lights, so you know what I mean. Like it just looked better. It looked professional. You can't do amateur shit and hope it comes out professional. Like either be professional or don't. And this looked professional. And then we got Deonna Purrazzo versus Masha Slamovich. I've said this a couple times about Masha. I would have preferred her squash matches to be actual squash matches. Squash matches I watched as a kid growing up in the 80s where she just whooped someone's ass for 4 minutes. But her squash matches are let me hit you with 2 moves and the snowplow, which is not that good of a finisher. I really think if she had a cooler finisher, that would do like wonders for her character. Her and who did Masha Slamovich? I believe she wrestled Mickie James. Excuse me, Mickie James. Deonna Purrazzo at a knockouts knockdown. I'm trying to think. But I know whoever she had the match was excellent. It got her contract with Impact. I say, here's your $400. So it got her contract. They've handled her very well. They've handled her in a way that I think that they should handle most new wrestlers. I don't mean every single new star that comes in should just go on this undefeated win streak. That's not what I'm saying. But, like when Macklin showed up, he, ultimately was beatable. But at first it was like, yo, who can beat this guy? Like there should be some degree of this guy doesn't lose or this girl doesn't lose, at least for a couple months, But they've made her very unstoppable. I don't know if she's a heel or a baby face. I haven't figured that out yet. Maybe they're trying to go the tweener route with her. Whoever the opponent is, it just kind of fits. She'll fit into that. This match probably wasn't as good as people were hoping it was going to be. I don't think anyone likes seeing Deonna lose, because she's truly one of the best in the world. I don't know that we enjoy seeing her lose. I would have rather her wrestled Chelsea here, but she wrestled Deonna. It was a number one contendership match, and it was a match that mattered because Deonna just beat Jordan in a tag team match not long ago. She's a tag team champion. So Masha wins in a match that matters against an opponent who matters. So we're going to get her versus Jordan Grace to Slammiversary. And when Jordan Grace came out at the end and they're face to face, I immediately got so invested in this. I don't know what it was about that. I got really, really invested in it right away. And I told myself I'd rather see this as the main event at Bound for Glory than Josh and Eddie. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be a better match. I think it's going to be a freaking kick-ass match though. But there was just something about it. I was just like, man, I guess that the match is so fresh for the belt. I'm like, man, I would be okay if it main event Bound for Glory. I'm not sure who's going to win this. I really, really don't. It probably makes sense for Masha to win. Because does Jordan necessarily need that win? I don't know. But, I just like the way she confronted her at the end and it looked like they really wanted to fight. It was a really good way to go off the air. But I'm very, very invested in this and where it's going to go. I'm invested in what's the build going to be up to the match, because I think we're off to a really good start. But where is it ultimately going, and how are we going to get there? What are their run-ins going to be like the rest of the time? We don't need Masha backstage with Gia Miller cutting an interview, or now Jordan's going to talk this week, then Mia's going to, and then Masha's going to talk the next week. Like, I hope that they can find something interesting to do. I would be okay if they kept both of them out of the arena all the way up until then and just did the video packages like they've done for some of the male main events over the years. Here's my last thing I want to say. The real interesting thing about Bound for Glory right now, we've got, I think, only 2 matches announced, right? The 4 competitors in these matches are not former WWE people. And I've been pointing this out, that Bound for Glory loves to rely on the former WWE talent to main event the show or to wrestle for championships. The Tennille Dashwoods, the Alberto El Patrons. And a lot of the time they don't even really earn their way into the matches. I know Sami Callihan and Brian Cage did a couple years ago, and they were more Impact guys, so to speak. But Sami still came from that WWE system. I know he was Solomon Crow, and he was a jobber in NXT, but still, he still came from that system. Like, these are Josh, Eddie, Masha, Jordan Grace. Like, these are people you think Impact Wrestling with. You don't think anything else. And they're doing it for their 2 big matches. X Division Championship, I could very easily see the Dorada fellow in that match if he's not wrestling him beforehand. He's not going to have a one-on-one match. I can promise you that, Mike Bailey. He's not. It's going to be some kind of 9 people rolling around playing grab ass. We're going to get some WWE people in there one way or another. I'm pretty sure of it. The tag team title match. Well, I guess Mike Bennett comes from that system. I don't know, but maybe they're just trying to say, hey, we got to start developing our own guys here. Maybe they learned something with the whole Good Brothers thing. We're like, hey, these guys are bending us over a barrel, showing us the 50 states. If you know a movie that's from, much props. But maybe they learned something from that. Maybe they said, yo, maybe we really got to do something with the people who are here and who started here and who want to build something with this company. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they put this Bound for Glory card together. But that's going to do it for me tonight. Hopefully TW and I hop on tomorrow and have some topics for you guys. But I was just pleased with the show. I was pleased with the episode. I will forever want the We Own the Night and the lights and all that. I just want that all to go away. The stupid sound effects. There's no signs that stuff is going away, but everything else is just good right now. It's good. I'm happy with it. Really looking forward to Bound for Glory. So thanks for checking with me, folks. Hopefully TW and I will be back on tomorrow. Just got to think of some topics we want to wrap to you guys about, and that's what we'll do. So it is the Impact Lounge. I'm your boy BQ. You can find me at BQ Speaks on Twitter. Thanks for checking in. I'm out. Peace.